All right. What's going on, everyone? It is still Wednesday night. It is currently 11:49 p.m. Wednesday, April 26th, day before draft night, or round one of the draft. I really wanted to get something out. And this kind of was on the back burner all evening. I was originally supposed to do this with James. We had it all planned. He was going to come on the show. We were going to talk draft theories and prop bets and, all the other rumors going around. I don't think we were going to do a draft. But typical things that we do, we love the prop bets. And betting, not betting, actually betting. James probably will. I won't. I'm not much of a gambler. Anyway, we love doing that. James loves the draft. I firmly believe he would be here if he was able to. Something came up at the last minute for him. He had to back out. And I don't blame him. So, I'm not going to hold it against him. I understand why I had to drop out. Anyway, so just going to be me tonight. And like I said, I had to put this on the back burner. I've spent the entire evening, cooking, myself dinner. I watched the Bruins, unfortunately, lose Game 5 to Florida. Hopefully we win Game 6 and it doesn't go to a Game 7. But that was disappointing. The Celtics were disappointing last night. So I need something. Anyway, so then the rest of the night, I was getting my mock draft ready for my blog. Finally got it done. I've had it done for about an hour. Had some minor tweaks. And then the rest has been collecting photos and just getting the blog ready. So, but mock draft is finalized. So what I'm going to do today, I'm not going to do a mock. You'll get mine tomorrow. You'll get James's tomorrow. And we'll do our regular competition where he has smoked me each year we've done it. Hopefully that'll change because it changed with our overall picks in the regular season. James had me beat in the NFL for years in a row. And then that changed this regular season. I bested him for once. So let's go ahead and get to the draft. Well, I guess first of all, before I get into the draft, I'll talk Aaron Rodgers. Officially gets traded to the Jets. Very weird feeling. It's the same feeling that I had when he originally announced his intention to play for the Jets in 2023. I've gone back and forth between bummed and excited. Just all a full range of spectrum of emotions. My opinion hasn't changed. This needed to happen. Best for both sides. A clean divorce. And unlike with Favre, it doesn't seem very bitter. I think Rodgers has come to terms with this for a while now and knowing this was likely coming, at least for, last few weeks. And I don't think he's bitter about it. He even said, in his statement about when he was officially gone, not going to be gone forever. Not going to be gone as in I'm coming back to Green Bay eventually. Not in terms of playing, but I think he means in terms of his retirement ceremony, retiring as a Packer, which I'm sure he will. His number being retired, he's going back to Green Bay one day. He's a part owner of the Bucs. Wisconsin's part of him. And so I just get a different sense with Aaron. It's also affected me differently because, I grew up with Rodgers. I didn't really grow up with Favre. I caught Favre at the tail end of his career. Doesn't take away from how I feel about Favre. I love Brett Favre. As a player, not so much as a person. But with Rodgers, I watched him get drafted. I watched him take snaps as a rookie in preseason. I'm not sure I watched him make his first start, but, I remember when Green Bay said, he's our guy. I remember when, his first year as a starter. I remember his first playoff game. I remember that Super Bowl. I remember his first MVP season. I was there for all of it, and I've watched it go from, like I said, drafted to rookie in preseason to playoff game to Super Bowl to MVP to future Hall of Famer to now he's no longer with the team. So it's affected me differently. I've seen just about every snap he's taken, and it's going to be really weird not seeing 12 in the backfield. But this is something that I've argued for the last few years. Had to be done for the better of the organization. Just quit hanging on. It was done. It was time to move on. So, but doesn't mean I'm not bummed. As for the trade compensation, I had a few buddies of mine that were who clearly weren't paying attention to all the news. They were like, "Oh, fleeced. Packers got fleeced," which I want to make it clear. I don't think either of these teams got fleeced. I don't think the Jets did. I don't think the Packers did. I think I would have liked more compensation for Green Bay, but what did it end up being? Like a second, a pick swap in the first round, and then a conditional next year that could turn into a first. That's about what I thought it would take. James and I said several times on this podcast, if I can get a first and a conditional first, I'll be very happy. Now, ended up not being 2 firsts. It was a pick swap, which the closer we got, the longer this went on, the more I was like, maybe a pick swap will happen. Or maybe a pick swap is more likely, and that's exactly what happened. But I don't think the Packers got, fleeced. Obviously the Jets won the trade. I mean, they got the player. Green Bay's future is uncertain at this point. With Jordan Love now being the starter, and who knows what the future holds for Green Bay when this is the first time likely they're not going to have a Hall of Fame quarterback under center for the last 30 years or whatever. So, but, I think Green Bay's well run. I think they'll be all right. I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff like some people do. Granted, I'm a homer, but I think even James, an impartial fan would tell you that. Or any impartial fan would tell you that. So I thought the compensation was fair. It was really a fair trade for both sides. I don't think the Jets gave up too much. I thought it was just right. And that's really all I'm going to talk about because we're here to talk draft. But I wanted to touch up on that real quick. So one thing that I love to do, and let me pull up FanDuel real quick. I love to do prop bets. And while I'm here, I'll go ahead and go through FanDuel odds. Let me refresh the page real quick. This has changed throughout the night. So I'm going to go through all these different bets that FanDuel has here. Maybe not the combination picks. Maybe some of those. But I'll go through the top 10 here. So the number 1 overall pick, which we've had a feeling this was coming really for the last week or so, week and a half, 2 weeks. A month ago, the odds were in CJ Stroud's favor, and now, and I remember saying it to James a month ago, hey, give it a few weeks, it might change, and it has changed. Bryce Young's now a heavy favorite to be the number 1 overall pick. He is minus 3,500. I'd go ahead and start preparing that. I'd go ahead and get the hat ready, and the jersey with Young on it with the Carolina Panthers look. I'd just go ahead and start getting it ready. I think it's coming. Next best odds is Will Levis at plus 1,000. Number 2, this is when it's obviously going to get intriguing. Houston, which FanDuel doesn't have it listed as Houston. They just say the number 2 overall pick. So they currently have Will Levis favored in this spot at plus 170. Will Anderson in second at plus 270. Tyree Wilson at plus 300. It's going to be one of these 3 guys. If you still think that it's going to be CJ Stroud at this spot, I think you need to change your attitude, or not attitude, that makes it sound bad, but I think you need to change your mind because everything is pointing in the direction that CJ Stroud's going to fall a little bit in this draft. I'm not sure he's going to fall that far, but I don't think it's going to be an Aaron Rodgers situation or a Geno Smith situation where he's waiting for 3 hours. Don't think it's going to be that, but I think all signs are pointing to he's going to slide. So, and the FanDuel is telling you here that what the word on the street is that I think these teams are valuing Will Levis a lot more than C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson when it comes to the quarterbacks. So Levis is favored here. He wasn't earlier today. He wasn't when I made my mock draft. Spoiler alert. But this number 2 overall pick is going to be one of these three guys between Levis, Anderson, and Wilson, unless it's some shocker. But I would expect it to be one of these three guys, and we'll see. I'm not confident either way. I'm not going to reveal what I had in my mock draft, but yeah, I'm not confident. Vegas isn't confident. This has changed. This has fluctuated throughout the week. It's been, Levis was a favorite, and then Anderson was a favorite, and then Tyree Wilson was a favorite for a while, or favored for a while. I don't know if favorite would be the right term, because I think favorite you have to be minus whatever. I'm not a gambler. I don't know. And then now it's, back to being Levis. So it's going to keep getting interesting. Number 3 overall pick. Will Anderson is currently favored here at plus 200. Tyree Wilson at plus 270. Paris Johnson Jr. made a little bit of a climb earlier today. I was keeping an eye on that. I don't know where he was originally. I didn't pay attention. But I checked this afternoon, and he had jumped to like the second best odds of this pick at plus 270 or something, and now he's back down to 300. So I think that picked up steam. I think Arizona's trying to trade back from this spot. And James and I even said for weeks that they likely would. The closer we get to this thing, the more I think it's not going to happen. This draft, I get a 2015 feel with this draft. If you remember the 2015 draft, one of the more boring drafts that I've witnessed, because it wasn't a great class, and I remember a lot of pundits thought that there were going to be trades back and forth, teams trying to get out of a pick, teams trying to get into a pick, and it was just going to be trades galore, and 2 trades ended up happening in the first round. I don't remember one. I know for sure one. No, maybe I do remember both. I know for sure one was the Chargers. They traded up to get Melvin Gordon. I remember that. I want to say the Niners were involved in the other one. I think they traded up to get, I want to say it was Eric Armstead. I could be wrong about that. But I think it's going to be similar. I don't see very many trades in this draft. I could be totally wrong. Last year was crazy. Last year it was a bunch of trades, and then you had a bunch of veterans getting dealt. On draft night, A.J. Brown and Marquise Brown were dealt. So I don't think that's going to happen. Given how crazy it was last year, this feels like it's going to be more dialed back and not as crazy. So anyway, I mentioned all that to say that Arizona is, I think, trying to push Paris Johnson Jr. to try to get a team who's interested in Paris Johnson Jr., who's the offensive lineman from Ohio State, to trade up to get him. That way Arizona can trade back, but I don't think it's going to happen. So this pick is probably coming down to Anderson or Tyree Wilson, if I were to guess. Number 4 overall pick, Indianapolis currently holds this pick. So Vegas has 3 quarterbacks favored here. They go Levis, Stroud, and Richardson. Levis is plus 150. Stroud making a little bit of a climb to plus 190. He was at plus 210 for a long time. Anthony Richardson at plus 270. Again, this is showing you what I just said. I think these teams like Levis more than they do Stroud or Richardson. The next best odds after Richardson is Will Anderson at plus 1,000, Tyree Wilson at plus 1,400, Jalen Carter at plus 4,000. So Vegas thinks this is going to be a quarterback. I agree. I think it's going to be a quarterback. My guess is if Will Levis is still on the board, he's going to be a Colt. I've always thought he was a great fit at Indianapolis. And if Levis is off the board, it's probably going to be Stroud, if I were to guess. I've gone back and forth. I'm starting to think Richardson might be the quarterback that slides a little bit. It ain't going to be a defensive player, I don't think, at this pick. Number 5, This has been interesting uh, throughout the week. Um, when I originally started paying attention to these odds around Monday morning, uh, I believe Will Anderson was favored in this spot, um, and Anthony Richardson was second, and maybe Tyree Wilson was third. I don't know. Could have been Jalen Carter too. And Jalen Carter has made a strong surge with this pick. I remember at one point in the week he was maybe plus 400, plus 300. Uh, Anthony Richardson was favored at one point. Will Anderson was favored at one point. And now, like I said, Jalen Carter has made a strong surge to this point. He is now minus 180 from, whatever it was on Monday, plus 300, plus 400, whatever. And yeah, now he's minus 180. I think that's going to be the pick. Seattle needs to bolster its defensive front. Even though they spent money in the interior during free agency, they could still use some more work. I wouldn't rule out a quarterback. I think Will Anderson's going to be off the board at this point. Same with probably Stroud. If the board, even if the board gets a little crazy, I guess not. Anderson, Stroud, or Wilson probably aren't going to be here. Some combination of 2 out of 3, 1 out of 3 probably aren't going to be here. I don't think Richardson's going to be the decision here. Seattle hasn't done a lot of – I'm sure they've done some homework on quarterbacks, but they haven't hosted any visits with the quarterbacks, and that seems odd. If you were serious about a quarterback, I feel like you would host them. So, like I said, I feel like all signs are pointing to Jalen Carter, which is why he's almost a minus 200 favorite, which is pretty significant. Number 6 overall pick. This is another one that's – oh, wow. This has shifted too. So earlier today, Devin Witherspoon has been favored in this spot all week. Earlier today, like I said, this is Wednesday, he was at like plus 100, and now he's at minus 140. So feels pretty good that this is going to be where Witherspoon falls. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets picked before this, honestly. The next best odds is Jalen Carter at plus 500. I think those are his best odds in these top 10 picks. So Carter's going to go 5 or 6, and Witherspoon's probably honestly going to go 5 or 6. Christian Gonzalez is next at plus 600 or plus 650. Anderson at plus 750. Don't think it's impossible that Anderson slides to this point. But Vegas is telling you that this pick is likely going to be Witherspoon, and I agree. This is another one that's interesting. Las Vegas Raiders, number 7 overall pick. They really have probably closer to 3 guys in this mix, but they're not confident in any of them. Christian Gonzalez and did I say Devon? I think it's Devin Witherspoon. Favored here, tied. So Vegas thinks that Las Vegas is going to go corner here. But I would keep an eye on Paris Johnson Jr. I think there's a very good chance that the Raiders go O-line. I've heard a lot of people say that the Raiders are probably going to go O-line. It's going to be, because like I said, I think Witherspoon's going to be off the board. At this point. So this pick is coming down to Gonzalez or Johnson, I think. And I wouldn't rule out Johnson. And he honestly has pretty good it's not like it's some huge drop-off between Gonzalez and Johnson. Like I said, Gonzalez is plus 300. Johnson's plus 350. Did I say plus 300 for Gonzalez? Plus 300 for Gonzalez. Johnson is plus 350. And then the next is C.J. Stroud at plus 650. I don't think Vegas is in on these quarterbacks. I think they were in on Bryce Young, and when they didn't get the number 1 overall pick, I think they're staying put with Garoppolo. I also think Skoronski at plus 850 if you wanted to get nuts, wouldn't be a bad play there. Number 8. So I've said from the beginning of this offseason or draft season that Bijan Robinson is going to go a lot earlier than people think. There were a lot of mock drafts I saw where Robinson was going in the 20s, and I've kept him in my top 20. And I've done I think 3 or 4 mock drafts since January, and in each one I had him in my top 20. And I've said, and I still maintain, Bijan Robinson's going to go in the top 20, probably the top 15. I'm not 100% sure where. He's one of the safest players in this draft class. He is going to be a stud in the NFL. The problem is he plays running back, and you never know who's going to value running back in a given year. It's become I don't want to say obsolete position, but it's just one like you can find that later. But I bring all that up because Robinson's favored at the 8th pick, where Atlanta is. Atlanta's been tied to Robinson, to say the least. He's currently a pretty heavy favorite, or favored pretty heavily with this at plus 250. The next best odds is Nolan Smith at plus 550. Then Stroud at plus 600. It's interesting that Stroud's still hanging around at this pick. I don't think Atlanta's in on these quarterbacks, but I could be wrong. I think this comes down to, if Atlanta keeps this pick, I think it comes down to Robinson or Smith. And right now, Vegas is telling you that Robinson's a heavy favorite. So I would go ahead and prepare for Robinson to be taken in the top 10. So now we get to pick number 9. So this one I can't figure out because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. First of all, Vegas favors Darnell Wright in this spot, who's the offensive tackle from Tennessee and also a West Virginia native. Just wanted to throw that out there. So Darnell Wright is favored in this spot, but when you look up the odds for first offensive lineman drafted, he's 3rd behind Johnson and Skoronski. So Skoronski is not favored in any of the spots between 1 through 7 or 8. But Darnell Wright has better odds than him at number 9. Interesting to think about. Vegas must know something we don't, or it's trying to get cute and make you, think this is happening. Because Vegas will do that. Vegas will, they're almost begging you to bet it or bet against it or something. And so that's interesting. I need to see it first. If Skoronski's still on the board at this point, which I think he will be, I need to see the Bears draft Darnell Wright over Skoronski. Either way, I think this pick, and Vegas agrees, I think this pick is coming down to offensive line. Wright is, like I said, the favorite at plus 360. Then it's Skoronski and Johnson at plus 380. And then the next best odds after those 3 guys is Jalen Carter at plus 650, and I don't think he's going to be there. After that, it's Broderick Jones at plus 1100. So I think Chicago is going to go O-line. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if Bijan Robinson was still on the board. I think the Bears could pick him. But I think they go O-line. My guess is it's probably Skoronski or Johnson. I got to see it with Wright before I really believe it. So Philadelphia, James's Philadelphia Eagles hold the number 10 pick for now. And I've heard all sorts of things. I've heard they're in on these offensive linemen. I've heard they're in on Bijan Robinson. They could draft one of the corners, a plethora of things. I've heard they could trade up. I've heard they could trade back. Just all sorts of things going on. Right now, Peter Skoronski is favored at plus 240 by a pretty significant margin. Next up is Paris Johnson Jr. at plus 430. That tells me that Philly is in on these offensive linemen, and I know that makes James mad. I'm not sure if they're going to be in on Paris Johnson Jr. just because he's a pure tackle, and it's not that Philly couldn't use a tackle. I'm not familiar with their depth chart situation, but they would have to, be a swing tackle or sit the bench for, a couple years probably. And I'm just not sure they want to do that. This team lost some good players in the offseason. They have some holes to fill. So I don't think they're going to draft like a third tackle or something. If they're going to do that, they're going to pick a third edge or a third corner or a third, guard, which is why Skoronski's favored here because he can play tackle or guard. In Philly's system, he's probably going to slide down to guard. For any team, he's probably going to slide down to guard, honestly. But I think he can play tackle. So I think they're in on Skoronski, but I think he's going to be off the board at this point. I think if Chicago's there and Johnson's off the board, they're going to take Skoronski, which leaves it kind of wide open. And Nolan Smith is plus 450. That makes a lot of sense. I think those are his best odds in the top 10. Smith is plus 450 at 10. He doesn't appear at 9. He's 550 at number 8. Yeah. Those are his best odds to go in the top 10. And I think he will go in the top 10. Just those traits, man. Even though he's not the biggest guy, he's an undersized edge rusher, but shoo, is he athletic. Just look at his combine. Howie Roseman loves defensive linemen. He loves edge rushers. And Philly needs to look to the future along their defensive front. Brandon Graham's getting older. Fletcher Cox is getting older. So they need to start looking and planning ahead there. So I think this is going to be Skoronski or Nolan Smith. And Bijan Robinson is plus 600 if you want to get nuts. I don't think that would be a bad play there. But I think it comes down to those three guys, and I'm going to give the slight advantage to Nolan Smith. So there's the top 10. So this is the top 3 overall picks in order. And this makes me feel a little bit better looking at these odds. Because I saw Levis at 2. And like I said, I hinted at it earlier. But I was like, am I going to have to, this was at like 10:30. I was like, am I going to have to blow up my mock and start all over? And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Screw it. I'm just going to roll with what I got and pray that I'm right. So this makes me feel a little bit better. The favorite or the combination of the top 3 picks that's favored right now is Bryce Young first, Tyree Wilson second, Will Anderson third. That feels right. If you look at most, not all, but most mock drafts out there, I think that's the combination that they have. They might have Anderson 2 and Wilson 3. Some might have a quarterback. But honestly, it's kind of a drop. So I'm looking at here. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The top 6 odds of the first 3 picks. Like I said, the combination that's favored right now is Young at first, Wilson second, Anderson third. After that, that's at plus 420. After that, it's Young, Wilson, and Paris Johnson Jr. Like I said, keep an eye on that. And then Young, Levis is okay. So Young, Levis, and Anderson. So that does not make me feel that much better, but that's still quite a drop. Let me refresh real quick and see if these have changed. They have not. Doesn't look like it. Nah, they have not. Plus 1,000 is Young, Wilson, Stroud. Plus 1,500 is Young, Wilson, Richardson. Plus 2,000 is Young, Wilson, Levis. Yeah, that's unlikely. Draft position. Yeah, so Bijan Robinson, I just pulled him up. His number is 12.5. And right now it is minus 250 that he's under the 12th pick. And I buy that. I 100% buy that at this point. Broderick Jones is 14. He's over right now at minus 250. That feels right. Dalton Kincaid, I'm interested here. Okay, this makes me feel better. Because every mock draft I've seen has Dalton Kincaid going, like almost every single mock draft I've seen has Dalton Kincaid going like 13 overall. And I just don't see it. This year has him, well, this year, but at least Vegas has his number at 24.5. They have him at under, but that could be anything. That could be 24, that could be 23, that could be 22. So they do have a heavy favorite here for the under for Kincaid at minus 215, but that makes me feel a little bit better. I didn't have Kincaid in my top 20. Jackson Smith and Jigba, his number is 12.5. That feels about right. He's minus 360 to go over. Oh boy, that might disappoint fans. Michael Mayer, 21. Okay, so again, I don't know when this tight end class is going to start or when this run on tight ends is going to start, because you're going to find out in a bit that I think these teams are higher on the tight ends than they are the receivers in this draft class. But I don't know when the tight end run is going to start. It could start at 13 when Green Bay picks. I think that's the earliest it could start, and I don't think Green Bay is going to draft a tight end. After that, maybe 16 to Washington. It could be 21. Yeah, that feels about right. I think that's kind of when, realistically, the tight end run's going to start at 21. Nolan Smith, let me see. He's at 11, so the under there is the favorite. Skronsky's at 10.5. Okay, I can see that. Quentin Johnston is at 23.5. Yeah, that feels right. Zay Flowers. I'll get to Zay Flowers here in a bit, but he's at 19.5, and the over is the favorite. I would take the over there. I don't think he's going in the top 20. Team draft specials. Okay, so this is interesting. The Baltimore Ravens are favored to get a corner, which I expect. Receiver is plus 170. Let me look at Green Bay. Tight end at plus 170. Interesting. Wide receiver at plus 230. If you want to get nuts with this, if you're a Green Bay fan out there, sprinkle some money on defensive line or offensive line. I don't think that's out of the question, and you'll get a decent return here. Defensive line plus 300. Depends on if they're talking edge rusher. If they're talking interior D-line, forget it. But if they're talking edge, let me see here. As per our rules, players listed as edge will be classified as defensive line. Okay. Yeah, I would, if you're feeling nuts, sprinkle some money on Green Bay taking a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman. Looks like you'll get a pretty good return. Let's see what else we got here. Cincinnati corner plus 220. Interesting. D-line, interesting, plus 230. Cleveland, Dallas. Dallas was tough for me in my draft, in my mock. Tight end plus 175. Yeah, I thought about it. O-line plus 350, D-line 350, so okay. Let's look up the Seattle one. No, it doesn't look like it. Because Seattle's a team I can't figure out what they really plan on doing. Washington's another one. Corner plus 170. Kind of wish I'd done that. Tennessee. Yeah, that's interesting. Tennessee, quarterback plus 100. O-line plus 130. It's going to be one of those positions. The closer we get, the more I think Tennessee's taking a quarterback. Tampa, O-line 175, plus 175. Yeah, I believe that. Kind of a drop-off to D-line, too. San Francisco, doesn't have a first-round pick. Yeah, offensive line, that checks out. I think that's San Francisco's biggest need. Pittsburgh, O-line, minus 115. Interesting. Jets, O-line, minus 250. Yeah, I would say so. Giants, corner at plus 160. Interesting. Of course, receiver at plus 160 is interesting, too. Tell you what, William Snoddy, my buddy William Snoddy, if you're listening to this, maybe sprinkle some, like, $10 on O-line. I think that could be interesting, and that's a plus 410. That's a pretty good return. Saints, minus 115, that checks out. New England, O-line, that checks out. Minnesota, really? Wide receivers the favored there. Interesting. Chargers, minus 135 to take a wide receiver. I believe that. Okay, so Chiefs, plus 175 to take a wide receiver. I don't believe that. Yeah, I don't believe that for the Chiefs. Well, of course, they have all three positions the exact same. Wide receiver, O-line, D-line. It's going to be O-line or D-line, I think, for Kansas City. Jacksonville, offensive line, really? Would not have guessed offensive line to be favored that much. Minus 115. All right, I'm going to move on here. To be a top 5 pick, Levis minus 1,500. Yeah, I wouldn't touch that, obviously, because you're not going to get much of a return. But yeah, Levis minus 1,500, that shows you what Vegas thinks. Stroud minus 470, man, he's not going away. Tyree Wilson minus 400. Will Anderson minus 300. Jalen Carter minus 175. Yeah, I mean, that's about right. I think the top 5 is going to be some combination of Bryce Young, Levis, Stroud, Wilson, Carter, Anderson. And between Stroud, Wilson, or Anderson, one of those isn't going to be in the top 5 probably. I'm going to say Stroud, but it could be Wilson or Anderson. I think it will. I think Carter will be in the top 5. I think Richardson slides, and I think Stroud probably slides. So let's go on here. Let's go ahead and get into the positions, because I didn't want to stay too long, and I'm already approaching. All right. I wanted to keep it around 45 minutes. So let's go ahead and get to these position prop bets that James and I do every year. So quarterbacks. This is very interesting. Quarterbacks to be drafted in round 1. The number is 4.5. And right now, the over is minus 210. I was hoping that number wouldn't be that high so I could surprise everyone. But yeah, I would take the over. And you're probably thinking, well, who's the 5th guy? You got Young, Stroud, Richardson, Levis. I'm telling y'all, I'm buying the Hendon Hooker stop. I think Hendon Hooker, sorry. I almost said Henderson Hooker. Now I've forgotten his name. Hendon Hooker. I'm buying his stock. I think he's going in round 1. I really wouldn't be shocked if he goes in the top 20. Don't be shocked if it happens. I think it's very likely. So, yeah, 4.5. I would take the over there on quarterbacks. A week ago, I would have said the under. Tight end. This is probably the toughest one because this is a really good tight end class. And like I said, I think the teams in the league are much higher on the tight ends than they are the receivers in this draft class. But the number is 2.5, and right now the under is favored here at minus 194. So they're thinking 2, and that feels about right to me. I feel like the league has cooled off on Darnell Washington. I saw him as high as, 15 to Green Bay at one point this offseason, but it feels like the league has cooled off on him, or that might have just been a media push, which happens. I mean, the media hypes up a player all the time, and they slide, and we're like, why is this player sliding? Turns out the media was higher on him than the teams were. So this feels right. I haven't seen many mock drafts out there with 3 tight ends in the first round. Not for a few weeks now. All right, wide receivers. This is another one that's interesting. So right now the number is 3.5, and the over is favored here. I'm gonna go under. I think if you want to put money on these, I can't shake the feeling it's gonna be under for the receivers. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably gonna be in the top 15, definitely the top 20, and he's gonna be the only receiver in the top 20. This is not a great receiver class. Um, and I think Quentin Johnston has a really good shot to be a first round pick, uh, given his size and traits. Like someone's going to take a shot on him in round one. Um, so that's two right there. And between Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison, the track record in recent years doesn't give either of them much of or a great chance. As for Addison, he's a very undersized receiver. He's 6 feet tall, but he's about 170 pounds. I'm not sure if that's going to be good enough to sneak into the first round. It could be but he's not like it happened to Devontae Smith. It happened to Marquise Brown. Like quite a few undersized receivers have snuck into round one, or been drafted round one, without any questions. Addison is not those guys. He's not as good as Smith or Brown. He's definitely not a burner like Brown, and he's not as talented as Smith or Devontae Smith. So, and then as for Zay Flowers, I heard someone mention this, and it's true. In the last decade, there have only been, the number of receivers who are under 5'10", under 190 pounds, and were drafted in the first round is like around 10. But almost every single one of them, well, let me rephrase all this. There haven't been many players drafted under like 5'10" in the first round in the last decade. Probably more 5'11". But the ones that have were about 5'10", 180, and were burners, ran sub 4.40s. Zay Flowers is not that. He's under 5'10". He's about 180 pounds. He's about 5'9", 180. I think he's a really good player. I have no issues with the player. But he ran a 4.40, which I know is still pretty good. But you got to be a burner at that size to be drafted in round one. And history is not on Flowers' side. Even if it is Flowers, the number's 3.5 here. And I'm not sure 4 are getting in. I really don't. So I would take the under there on receivers, but who knows? I could be wrong. But I feel pretty strongly about that. I wouldn't be shocked if there were only 2 receivers drafted in the first round. DBs. This is another one that, I'm not sure what Vegas is thinking here. So DBs, right now the number is at 5.5, which is kind of fair. But the over is minus 192. And I just can't get behind that. I think there are 4 really good corners in this draft. Now I'm losing their names. Witherspoon, Gonzalez, Porter, Banks. I think those 4 are going to be drafted. Then I'm not sure there's a 5th corner. If there is, maybe Cam Smith, maybe Keely Ringo sneaks in there. But I think that's unlikely to happen. And then you're looking at, well, what about safeties? This isn't a very good safety class. The best one is Brian Branch. And I don't know if you've seen very many mock drafts lately. I haven't seen a single mock draft with Brian Branch still in the first round. He's undersized. He's not athletic. He screams second round to me. He's a good football player, but he's not going to – I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick. I would hammer the under on these DBs. 5.5 doesn't seem likely. I definitely don't see 6 corners getting in. Now 5 corners and a safety, maybe, but I don't think so. I would bet the under. And that might be the one with the biggest return right now. No. Right? Plus 142. No, quarterback. Yeah, quarterback has the biggest return right now. Looks like. but DBs looks like they're second or third. I would hammer the under for DBs. O line. So the number is 6.5. The under is minus 138. Honestly, the over is plus 104. So there's not, like, Vegas isn't really sold on the under either. It likes that over number too. I'm actually going to take the over here. I think there are 4 for sure tackles to be drafted in the top 20, probably top 15. Then you got 16 picks to get, 3 more guys in between Anton Harrison and a slew of interior offensive linemen. I think that's likely. Yeah. I would take the over. I think that I wouldn't be shocked if it's 7, maybe as high as 8. 7, probably not. I don't think I had 7 in my mock draft. I think I had closer to 5. But I was trying to get other offensive linemen in because I think they're going to be in the first round. So, like I said, for tackle, you got Skronsky, you got Johnson, you got Wright, Jones. Then Harrison, I think, is a kind of a tweener. We'll see if he gets in. Then interior offensive line-wise, I think John Michael Schmitz has a really good shot. Osiris Torrance has a really good shot. Steve Avila has a really good shot. Joe Tippmann I've seen in a lot of mock drafts in round 1. So those are 9 guys I just named. Probably not all are going to be in the top 10 or in the first round, but I'm feeling dangerous, you could say. I'll take the over there. So those are the only positions that they have available. One thing I wanted to ask James if he thought I was crazy, but I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if the number of combined offensive linemen and defensive linemen in the first round is approaching 20 by the time the night's over. Because like I said, I think you could have as many as 9 potentially. Like, that's at the most offensive linemen. And then in defensive linemen, I think you have probably, 4 or 5 edge rushers that are, I think, guaranteed to be round 1. Wilson, Anderson, Smith, Van Ness, Murphy. And then interior, those 5 I think are probably a really good chance to be top 20. Probably more likely top, 3 or 4 are probably going to be in the top 20. One's going to be somewhere between 21 to 31. And then interior defensive lineman, Jalen Carter. I think Kalijah Cansey's going to be top 20. So that's 7 right there. And then you have Mozzie Smith, Brian Brzee, interior guys who could go round 1. You got Will McDonald, who I feel very strongly is going to be a first-round pick. You got Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Keion White. Like, don't be shocked if between the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman combined, we're approaching 20 guys who have been drafted in the first round. Like I said, this is not a very good class. And when it's not a very good class, I think it's likely teams are just going to be like, you know what? This class is pretty good in the trenches. Let's just stock up in the trenches, because, like I said, even though this draft isn't very good, I think there are talented players at running back, tight end, O-line, D-line, specifically edge rusher, and corner. I think if you draft from those positions, I think you have a good, especially in the first 100 picks, first 3 rounds, I think you have a pretty good shot of getting a good player. So yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if the trenches, if there are close to 20 trenches players drafted in the first round. I phrased that poorly. It's 12:30 in the morning. Give me a break. I'll leave it there. I'm ready to go to bed. I've been up since 6:30. I need to go to bed, and I got to be up at 6:30. So I wanted to talk some draft though before it was too late. So I'm going to leave you with that. I think I got my theories out there. I think we I got my thoughts on some of those bets. We're approaching an hour, so I'm going to leave it at that. I wish James was here. I would be interested to see what he thought. Big weekend. Stay safe. Let's hope the Bruins win, the Celtics win, and let's just hope for a good draft. So for everyone. So I'll leave y'all at that. I'll see y'all. Hopefully we'll get together next week. I haven't talked to James, but hopefully we'll get together next week and talk or recap the draft. So I'll leave y'all at that.